Science has allowed us to talk to people on the other end of the globe, over thousands of kilometers. Just think about how amazing that is. Our small voices are able to travel over the entirety of the Earth within a few seconds or less. To many people now, this may be normal, a daily part of our lives. But back in the 1800s, this was simply a dream. This dream, however, was taken on by a physicist by the name of Guglielmo Marconi, who took this dream and worked to make it into reality. In 1895, Marconi set out on a mission of connecting the world. Guglielmo Marconi used Hertzian waves to invent the radio and send a radio signal over the Atlantic Ocean in 1900, an invention that broke the barrier of distance and changed the way we communicate to those far away. Heinrich Hertz was a physicist who discovered a new kind of radiation that behaved similarly to light. This was the Hertzian waves, or what we will come to know as radio waves. It had larger wavelengths than light, but it did not seem to have much use. Inspired by his work, Marconi started experimenting with the Hertzian waves. His goal was to improve distant communication. Distance was a great barrier that slowed the progress of technology. Communication over great distances was only possible by the delivery of a letter, flashing lights, or other optical methods. The electric telegraph required wires, which limited the distance of which it could send. These methods proved to be rather inefficient or simply slow, though it was all they had at the time.
Rocky Point, Long Island, 1933. Guglielmo Marconi and David Sarnoff visit the birthplace of broadcasting. Radio's first castle was this rustic shack.
In 1895, Marconi started off his adventure of wireless telegraphy with a coherer inspired by Brownlee. It was built inside a tube with nickel and silver filing placed between two silver plugs. His coherer was more efficient than Brownlee's, but Marconi believed that there was yet much room for improvement. In August that same year, he built a new model that would send and receive signals over greater distances, as well as interfere less with obstacles. It was built by connecting one end of the Hertzian spark producer, also known as the Hertzian oscillator, and the other end to wires placed higher above, and by connecting the receiver to the ground and the sender on a conductor placed above. This new model pulled in a little attention to Marconi's works. From 1896 to 1897, the young physicist tested on his new model. He changed the height on which the conductor would be placed. By making it higher, it improved the distance which it could communicate. This new model also required much less electricity and it appealed to the public. There was a theoretical problem, however. The curvature of the Earth could possibly limit the distance Hertzian waves could be used to communicate. It would be impossible to send a straight beam of radio signals overseas. The beam will slowly rise above sea level and fly off into space. In 1899, Marconi took on this endeavor to send radio signals over the Atlantic Ocean. He was assisted by Professor Fleming, Mr. Vivian, and Mr. Entwistle. He would erect stations at Cornwall and Newfoundland. Then, he would send a radio signal, the Morse code for S, over the Atlantic Ocean, over 4,000 kilometers. If this test failed, this will mark the limit for how far the radio could be used to communicate. This was a barrier that Marconi wanted to overcome with all his might. After months of hard work, he finally sent the signal in December 1901 from his station at Cornwall. The test was a success. Marconi had sent a radio signal, despite the curvature of the Earth. He explains that his signal must have reflected off the atmosphere, allowing the signal to bounce back to Earth and deliver a message to the receiving end of this experiment. Messages could now be sent overseas with the radio. It will no longer require ships to deliver messages. This was Marconi's greatest achievement. The barrier of distance was finally overcome.
In 1921, radio fans were all earphones listening to a pioneer station, WHN. Crystal Set Explorers hear such performers as Miriam Batista, child movie star.
The radio was supposedly heading in a new direction, one that will help people communicate over great distances, but the radio will be used for commercial broadcasting first. There is no doubt that broadcasting media for an entire city to hear was a great feat itself. The radio was developing fast, and the public was getting their hands on it at last. Marconi continued to improve his radio. In 1922, Marconi upgraded the radio to be able to send private messages. He said, "I can talk by wireless to a man over there, and no one in New York can hear what is said," in an interview with the Evening Public Ledger. The physicist also remarks that, "No, I am not disclosing just now how I will accomplish it. I am simply saying I can do it," to show his confidence in his invention. Marconi knew that the radio will improve for decades and that his invention would change the way we communicate. He knew that broadcasting news, entertainment, and advertisements was not at all the limit of the radio. By the 1930s, large stations were being built, and the industrialization of the radio had already started. Many stations were joining at the time as well, with commercial sponsors and radio sales doubling each time one joined. By 1934, 60% of the American population had the radio, which just shows how successful Marconi's invention had been. Rewinding back to the 19th century, back when the radio did not exist, the military communicated in terms of optical or electric telegraphy. Electric telegraphy used wires to send messages in Morse code. The requirement of wires was a great downfall. This is why people use optical telegraphy, such as flashing lights or waving flags. Of course, these were inefficient methods, but it was the best tool for communication at the time. It was in the 20th century where the radio would be used for war. It could send messages over greater distances, even at sea. By 1914, most of the world used it for war. Unfortunately, the radio possessed one downfall, being that enemies could hear messages sent to allies. Because of this, messages were sent in ciphered codes. With the introductions of airplanes in World War I, as well as advanced tanks, ships, and armored formations in World War II, the radio became crucial for organization and coordination at war. Armies built countermeasures to the radio because of how effective it was. Today, radios are a daily part of our lives, and most of us listen to it every day while driving to work or school. It inspired methods of media such as the internet, something most of us rely on heavily. What would the world be if we couldn't get information through media like the internet and the radio? The radio had simply been a dream in the 19th century, and Guglielmo Marconi made it into reality. From a coherer that could barely send a signal over a mile, to sending messages over the Atlantic Ocean, to the widespread use of the radio for both commercial and military reasons, the radio has come a long way. The barrier of distance had been broken with Marconi's great invention. No longer does it require a huge, expensive network of wires, months of shipping letters, or telegraphy using lights and flags to send messages over a long distance. Guglielmo Marconi had taken Hertzian waves, invented the radio, and sent signals over the Atlantic Ocean, an invention that changed the way we communicate to those far away forever.